The Ewing and the Restless spoilers shock Monday. Full episodes May 26, 2025. It was a late afternoon in Genoa City when Lauren Fenmore swept into the luncheon suite at Newman Enterprises with a gravity in her eyes that immediately set Nikki Newman's nerves jangling. The birthday confetti had barely settled. The afterglow of Lily Winters's memorial still lingered like a bittersweet perfume in the corridors, and Victor was once again pacing the length of his grand office, restless even after his stunning victory over Aristotle Dumas. Nikki looked up from her iced tea, caught between relief and dread. Lauren closed the door behind her with a muted click, then crossed to Nikki's side and lowered her voice. "Nikki," she began, "I've just come from the clinic." "The tests on Devon's cardiac panel?" A single phrase was enough to steal the color from Nikki's cheeks. "They're inconclusive," Lauren continued, "and there's something else. Your half-sister, Margaret Chancellor, has been in an accident. It's bad, Nikki. She doesn't have much time." The words landed like stones in the polished air. For the past year, Nikki had thought the worst behind her, Aristotle's threat neutralized, Lily's killer in custody, but the Newman matriarch was about to face another slashing twist of fate. Bad news delivered by the one friend she never imagined wanting to console her again. Lauren's hand fluttered over Nikki's arm, the kindness in her eyes belied the ferocity that had driven her to rebuild her own life after years of heartache. Nikki forced a nod, her mind racing. "Thank you, Lauren. I'll arrange to fly out tonight." She stood shakily, bracing herself for a blow she knew would never fully land. Meanwhile, across town at the Abbott mansion, Diane Jenkins was wrestling with a different kind of terror. She had spent the morning fielding brochures and itinerary options from Jack, Tuscany, Santorini, Provence, and by mid-afternoon she'd retreated to Kyle's sleek corner office at Jabot. The sunlight slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the basket of homemade cookies Claire Newman had set to cheer Kyle's lonely weekend. Chocolate-dipped shortbreads, macadamia clusters, ginger snaps. A cursive note lay atop the treats, "Sorry I was harsh at breakfast. Hope these help." See. Kyle had eaten one, then two, but Diane's concern robbed him of appetite. He lifted the note, read it again, and set it aside as Diane entered, her face drawn. "Kyle, I know you think Jack and I should go get away for a while, just the two of us, but I can't stop worrying." She crossed the room and pressed a hand to his shoulder. "What if you get distracted while we're gone? I've heard about your late-night meetings with Audra Charles. What if she's leading you into something you'll regret?" Kyle rubbed his hand over his temple, the memory of his fevered conversation with Audra last night still burning behind his eyes. He took a steadying breath. "Mom, stop worrying. You and Jack need this trip. I'll keep the fort safe. Jabot's revenue streams are secure, the merger negotiations are locked down. And Audra is just a colleague, she's brilliant at crisis PR, that's all." He paused then, as though weighing a confession against his own pride. "The truth is," his voice lowered. "The drive to win, it's in my blood. It never really left me. Every time I see Audra's confidence, her effortless poise, I feel that old devil on my shoulder, urging me to do more, push harder. It's not her fault, it's this hatred I have for Victor. I hate what he's done to our family, and I hate what he's doing to me and Claire." He stared at his mother, vulnerability cloaked in ambition. "Sometimes I wonder whether I can ever be the man Claire deserves, or if I'll always be just like Victor, ruthless, calculating, obsessed with power." Diane's eyes softened. She'd once warned Claire about Kyle's capacity for self-sabotage, and she feared that his relentless drive might cost him the very thing he most desired. She swallowed and reached out to cup his face in her hands. "You're good, Kyle. You choose right more often than you think. But you have to remember who you are, not just what you can accomplish." She smiled through tears. "Your father and I, and Claire, love you for you, not for your victories." She squeezed his cheek, then turned to leave, her voice hushed. "Enjoy the cookies, dear. and don't let any devil push you off your path. Kyle watched her go, heart pounding. No sooner had the door closed than his phone buzzed, a text from Audra. He read it. Hey, got time for coffee this afternoon? I need to run something by you, an urgent client briefing. Hope you're free. His pulse raced once more. Was this the beginning of another challenge, another trap, or simply a caffeine-fueled brainstorming session? He tapped out a reply, on my way. Back at Newman Enterprises, Nikki was coordinating travel arrangements when Diane's prior words found her mind. She rubbed her temples, fighting off the weight of back-to-back crises, Margaret's accident, the fallout of Lily's death, and now yet another threat to her family's fragile peace. She stood and crossed to Victor's office, where he was hunched over his desk, blueprints for the next security upgrade spread before him. He looked up as she entered, his expression softening. Margaret, he asked quietly. She nodded, and he rose to embrace her. I'll get a jet ready, he said. We'll leave in an hour. Nikki met his gaze, finding resolve in his steady presence. We'll face this, together, she whispered. Outside, the call to coffee cart on the ground floor went unanswered, Kyle and Audra now plotting in hushed tones over cappuccinos, Diane's departure looming, and Lauren, racing to the airport with Nikki's forgiveness and gratitude swirling like fog in her chest. Genoa City braced itself for another storm, while 4 weary hearts, Nikki's, Victor's, Kyle's, and Diane's, prepared for battles of loyalty, love, and ambition that no amount of security cameras or corporate legalities could ever fully contain. He stepped into the warmly lit sunroom where Diane was arranging orchids on the windowsill, his face a mask of barely contained frustration. In his hand he held his phone, screen still glowing with the damning text that had arrived mere minutes earlier. Mom, he said tightly, extending the device toward her. Diane took it, her brow knitting as she read his words. Audra's invitation this afternoon wasn't about coffee, she's lining me up for something big. I'm certain she's setting a trap. Diane looked up, her mother's instincts flaring. Be careful, Kyle, she warned, stepping close enough to lay a hand against his chest. You know Victor and Audra both believe you're easy to manipulate. They'll try to draw you in, test your loyalty, and then strike. Kyle's jaw clenched. Let them think that, he muttered, retrieving his phone. Let them believe I'm the weak link. They're in for the shock of their lives. He offered Diane a brief, conspiratorial smile, half pride, half warning, and strode out of the sunroom, mind already racing through his next moves. Later that evening, the grand atrium of the Genoa City Athletic Club gleamed beneath its vaulted glass ceiling. Lanterns floated above the polished marble floor, and a soft breeze carried the muted hum of conversation. Nikki stood beside the hostess desk where Lauren Fenmore had just arrived, trailing a coat over her arm. With a gentle flourish, Nikki opened her handbag and produced the delicate rose-gold pendant that had seemed to glow on her neck ever since Victor had slipped it into her palm that very afternoon. Isn't it exquisite? Nikki asked, turning it over between thumb and forefinger. Lauren took it, feeling the cool metal and the tiny sapphire set at its heart. He outdid himself this time, Nikki murmured. Lauren's face sobered. She set the necklace down carefully on the desk. I came straight from the hospital, she said quietly. Michael's with Victor right now, and whatever he told him, let's just say Victor's blood is boiling. She paused, meeting Nikki's wide, anxious eyes. You should brace yourself. This could get very ugly. Nikki closed her mouth against a gasp. Michael, she echoed. What news could Michael possibly have brought to upset Victor so deeply? She watched as Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. I'll tell you in a moment, Lauren promised. But first, Jack Abbott just walked in. Jack appeared beside them in a single fluid motion, his effortless charm seemingly unruffled by the tension in the air. Ladies, he greeted, his tone warm. Everything all right? His bright eyes flicked between Nikki's pendant and the furrowed lines on Lauren's forehead. Lauren gave him a brief nod. Michael has quit working for Victor, she said. The words sounded unreal in the lofty calm of the CAC's lobby. Jack's expression shifted from concern to admiration. You convinced him to do that, he asked, offering Lauren a respectful nod. I admire Michael's courage. He's made the right choice. Nikki's lips pressed into a thin line of disbelief. He quit Victor? She repeated, her voice sharp with incredulity. Michael, the one man who kept Victor in check. The man who alone could tame Victor's worst impulses? She shook her head, a mixture of relief and frustration pouring through her. Honestly, it's the most absurd, infuriating, boring thing I could ever imagine. Jack chuckled, stepping closer. But sometimes the most unexpected decisions are the best ones, he said gently, placing a reassuring hand on Nikki's arm. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Nikki glanced at Lauren, seeking confirmation in her friend's eyes. Lauren gave a subtle nod. Michael believes he can do more good on his own, she explained, and he knows Victor won't listen unless he hears it from someone who answers to no one but himself. Nikki drew a slow breath, letting the news settle at the back of her mind like stones in still water. She slipped the pendant back into her clutch and forced a light smile. All right, she said, her voice steady. Let's see how long this new independence lasts. Together, the three of them stepped away from the hostess desk, weaving into the swirl of well-wishers and champagne flutes, each pondering the surprising new alignments and hidden traps that lay ahead in Genoa City's ever-shifting tapestry of power, and knowing, more than ever, that no one could predict where the next coup or the next betrayal would come from. The dawn light filtered through the tall windows of the Newman family's rustic barn-turned office, casting long, golden beams across the polished wooden floor. Outside, the rolling pastures lay shrouded in a thin mist, and the faint clatter of horses in the stables reminded Victor Newman that life on the ranch was as much a part of him as the boardrooms and skyscrapers of Genoa City. This morning, however, the serenity of the farm belied the storm that would break within its walls. Michael Corinthos stepped from his sleek black SUV onto the gravel lane, his polished leather shoes crunching beneath him. He tugged at the collar of his dark overcoat, mindful of the chill in the air, and approached the broad, weathered doors of the barn. Each plank seemed to whisper of generations of Newman's strength, and of hidden vulnerabilities. He paused, drawing in a steadying breath, then pushed the doors open to reveal Victor standing at the far end of the room, arms folded over his tailored tweed coat, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. Good morning, Michael, Victor said without turning. His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable edge of authority. We have a great deal to talk about. Michael closed the doors behind him and gave a curt nod. I'm ready, he replied, stepping across the threshold. He took in the familiar surroundings, sturdy oak beams overhead, rows of saddles hanging on iron brackets, the angular desk where he and Victor had met countless times to plot strategy. Yet this meeting felt different. There was a weight in Victor's posture, an unspoken tension that filled the space between them. Victor finally turned, smoothing his mustache as he approached. Let's start with Dumas, he said. Aristotle Dumas is raising capital faster than we anticipated. He has private equity funds lined up, phony shell companies under the guise of legitimate investment vehicles, and he's funneling money into a takeover bid against Newman Publications. If we don't move decisively, he could cripple our brand reputation before the year's end. Michael drew a sleek tablet from his coat pocket and tapped the screen, bringing up charts and financial projections. I've compiled the most recent inflow statements, he said, swiping to highlight graphs showing Dumas's rapid accumulation of venture capital. He's closing in on $50 million in seed funding, over $20 million committed to marketing acquisitions. His plan is clearly to overwhelm us with a takeover not of the Newman name, but of the public's perception of our stability. He's targeting our mid-tier investors, those vulnerable enough to sell their shares at the first sign of weakness. Michael looked up, his face serious. We must decide if we buy his stock block on the open market to drive up his acquisition cost, or if we pursue a hostile defensive merger with a strategic partner. Victor listened, his eyes narrowing slightly. What of Jabot? You reached out after you and Claire uncovered that Abbott Industries had identified one of our inside operatives last month. Jabot has closed its doors to us, Michael confirmed. Their board refused to reinstate the spy we planted. They've doubled down on their independence. Without direct influence there, we cannot use that channel to block Dumas's investments in consumer goods and lifestyle media. He's pivoted to niche markets, wine clubs, boutique real estate portfolios that play well to Jabot's customer base. He's leveraging every little foothold we relinquished. Victor straightened, his tall frame casting a long silhouette across the floorboards. Then we'll find another route. We'll tap into our internal legal reserves, threaten to devalue all existing shares if he crosses certain thresholds. We'll conduct a secondary offering, dilute his stake. Whatever it takes. He paused, then with a softer inflection added, but first, I want to talk about you. You and I, we have history. We've spent quiet evenings out here, under the lanterns and among the hay bales, sharing rare moments of calm before the next corporate storm. Remember the night I surprised Nikki with that makeshift dinner by the paddock? Michael allowed himself a faint smile at the memory, the whisper of silk evening gowns, the gentle glow of candle-lit lanterns balanced on barrels, the taste of her laughter mingling with crisp white wine. I do, he admitted. It was perfect. He hesitated, then met Victor's gaze. Victor, I need to be honest. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Giving me another chance in the Newman legal department, trusting me with sensitive counsel, but I feel the weight of it all. I'm at a point in my life where I need a change. A step back. There comes a moment in a man's life when he has to stop and smell the roses, you know? Victor regarded him with a mixture of surprise and mild amusement, one eyebrow rising. You never strike me as the sentimental type, he remarked, his tone teasing yet probing. But go on. Michael took a breath. It's my wife, Victoria. She's asked me to reconsider my priorities. With the constant crises, Dumas, publishing wars, shareholder infighting, I'm seldom home. I miss being present for our family. I know there will always be another emergency, but I need to find balance. My resignation isn't a knee-jerk reaction, it's a considered decision. Victor's smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of steel. He stepped closer, his voice low and emphatic. Do you understand what you're saying? Right now, we're on the brink of one of the most ruthless battles in Newman history. Dumas is circling like a shark. I need your expertise, your legal acumen, your ability to negotiate complex hostile takeovers. If you walk away now, I'm left exposed. Michael's shoulders slumped under the weight of the unspoken plea. There will always be crises, he repeated, softer this time. I'm grateful for this chance, but I can't ignore what my wife and daughter need. He glanced toward the open doors, where the ranch's morning light promised both hope and uncertainty. I'm not abandoning you in loyalty's name. I'm fulfilling a different obligation, one to my family. For a tense moment, Victor simply stared, as though computing an impossible equation. Then he let out a slow exhale, the mustache on his upper lip quivering. I need you, he said at last, his voice cracking with uncommon vulnerability. Not just for your legal mind, but because you're my son. I need you here. Michael lifted his gaze, meeting his father's eyes, those steely blue eyes that had stared down countless rivals. My wife wants this, he said, his voice gentle but firm. I hope you understand. Victor nodded, a hard knot of defeat twisting in his gut. He guided Michael toward the heavy oak desk. All right, he said in a quieter tone. We'll work together to engineer a graceful exit for you. But not until we neutralize Dumas. We set the trap, we corner him, then you can step aside. Agreed? Michael extended his hand, and Victor clasped it in a firm grip, sealing their uneasy pact. Outside, a lone horse neighed softly, as if offering its own benediction. The father and son stood side by side in the barn's golden light, aware that the battle ahead would test them both, and that once Dumas was vanquished, Michael's path home would finally be clear. In the days that followed, the Newman ranch became a strategic command center. Victor, Michael, and their hand-picked team of legal and financial experts huddled over long tables strewn with prospectuses and host schedules. Under the watchful eye of security cameras discreetly mounted in haylofts and stable eaves, they designed a comprehensive campaign. A secondary stock offering, a series of legal challenges to Dumas's funding sources, and a carefully scheduled public defamation suit timed to coincide with share trading windows. Michael drafted every clause with meticulous care, each article of incorporation and cease and desist order sharpening the hedge around Newman publications. But every plan has its cracks. While Michael labored over legal briefs in the old barn, his wife Victoria discovered a troubling clause in a partnership contract, one that would tie up Michael's attention at the very moment Dumas struck. She called him in panic, and he realized how tenuous his two worlds had become. On the eve of the final maneuver, Michael slipped outside to the paddock, where the late-night breeze rustled golden stalks of hay. He stood alone with a blanket of stars overhead, a solitary figure caught between legacy and family. In that moment, he vowed that once Dumas fell, he would never allow corporate wars to eclipse life's simpler rewards. At dawn, Victor and Michael launched the operation. Under the guise of a shareholder celebration at the Equestrian Pavilion, complete with catered brunch and polo demonstrations. Security teams mingled with guests, collared suspects in plain clothes, and decoy documents circulated among investors. When Dumas's emissaries appeared, bearing forged contracts and video equipment, they were swiftly intercepted. Within hours, his shell companies were frozen by court order, his front men detained, and his reputation in tatters.